You are live on Newsfile here on Joy 99.7 FM. It's live on the Joy News channel. My name is Evans Mensah. My guests are seated, and I'm delighted to say that I've just been joined by Dr. Clement Apak, is MP for Bulsa and the Deputy Ranking Member on the Education Committee of Parliament. Dr. Apak, thank you for your time here on Newsfile.
It's a pleasure to be here. It's my first
time this year? In a long time?
Yeah.
In a long time.
It's been a year since I was on the program.
So good to say.
There's a time for everything.
There's a time for everything. And this is that time. Kwabena is Senior Vice President of IMANI-Africa and a private legal practitioner as well. I'm grateful that he joined us. Martin Kpebu is a private legal practitioner, an activist, a human rights advocate, and is also joining us in the studio. Abdul Malik Kwekubako is just about taking his seat, but his documents have taken their seats already. And he'll be joining us in the studio shortly. And we'll start with one of the most topical issues this week, which is the new draft bill on public universities, which has been dismissed by some as an attempt to, an assault on academic freedom. Some even described it as, quote, control freak governance. That's what we're going to look at. Listen to this, and when we return, we'll dive into the matters.
The bill raises some interesting innovations, some of which are positive, some of which are negative. But I must say, in our opinion, the negatives outweigh the positive. One positive is that it is bringing one law which will regulate all public universities, which is a good thing. And then there's also another negative in the positive in the sense that it recognizes some level of autonomy for the university with respect to the individual teachers of the university. Apart from that, the provision as it stands will severely compromise academic freedom of the universities if it's enacted in the form it is now. When you talk about academic freedom, you are talking about the independence that the university itself, the teachers of the university, the students are supposed to enjoy on the campus. And this concept of academic freedom is to enable or facilitate research, dissemination of information, finding out new knowledge, which will then be used to promote teaching and promote the well-being of the society in general.
So you had Professor PJ, obviously one of those who support this particular draft legislation that Parliament will be considering very shortly. Dr. Park, I'll start with you. Your side in the House and your side in opposition, you object to this particular draft bill. Why?
Well, Evans, first of all, let me say good morning to you and good morning to my co-panelists, especially my senior brother. It's been a while. Yeah, I think this is the first time we are
this year.
This year we are interacting, but in person, and as we like to say, in dispatches, we are always crisscrossing.
You know, he's introduced me. I'm sorry I was late.
No, that's fine. I mean, your documents were way ahead of time, so
yeah, it was mentioned.
It was mentioned.
Yeah.
So,
oh, really?
Yeah. And I think people understand that once the
documents are here, I mean.
Okay. You are settling very close.
You see, they are here because of him.
Yes, and we deliberately put him next to you.
To cure the mischief.
We deliberately put him next to you.
That's right.
Yes, okay.
Very well. And let me say good morning to the viewers across the country, particularly Bulsa South. Evans, ordinarily, we should all be excited when propositions, or if you like, proposals are made to cure a problem or a challenge. But you see, it becomes an issue when proposals or propositions are made to cure a challenge or a problem that doesn't exist. That is a foundational reason why not just the opposition, but many independent-minded Ghanaians who have become aware of the intent of government to introduce a bill known as the Public Universities Bill. Now, when we speak, naturally, because of where I sit in the fact that I'm a member of the opposition party, my colleague Okujeto Ablakwa, when he speaks, he's seen as being somebody who is carrying the cross of a particular political party, or even for that matter, the former Minister for Education, Professor Nana. But what has happened since this information came to the public domain? And I say came to the public domain because as a member of parliament and on the education committee, I am yet to formally get a copy of the document in question. So it is important that
because he hasn't come to parliament.
it is important that we put things into perspective. But like it or not, once it has come to the public domain and commentaries are being passed on it, it's being evaluated, and the discourse is going on, it wouldn't be fair to say that because I am a member of parliament and I'm on the education committee, I shouldn't comment on it, which is what I've heard. I just tried to suggest that it is not proper.
Wait till it comes to you.
Yeah, it's not proper for members of parliament to comment on something that has not yet come before them. But I find that unacceptable. I mean, we have the right to comment on all and every matter. That certainly has implications for the well-being of the people and the nation. So whether it has come to us formally in parliament or not is not the issue. The fact is that government, the proponent of this act or bill, has not denied its existence. You know, since the alarm was blown, or if you like, the red flag was raised by Professor Jampo with regards to his interpretation of what this bill is going to mean.
What are the red flags?
Well, the red flags are very simple, and I've also had a chance to look at it, and I think I can quickly summarize them. First of all, the thrust of my argument is that it is not necessary, it is not needed, and there is no grave challenge in the area of governing our institutions of higher learning that will require that we do this. But be as it may, if we were to look at the proposed bill, the key aspects that trouble many of us and many independent-minded Ghanaians who know the meaning of academic freedom in particular and the way an institution of higher learning is supposed to function, have concerns about the decision to change the composition of the governing council. For example, I mean, we are yet even to look at the fact that they are trying to let all the universities look the same, which in itself is another problem. But let's just even look at the proposed structure of the governing council. As it is now, all the public universities exist on the basis of law, of acts, of charters. These charters that have brought them into being recognize their uniqueness and gives them room to govern themselves in a way that is commensurate with their history and their traditions. And we shouldn't forget that. Universities have histories and they have traditions. So when you then decide that you are going to change the status quo into a system that reduces the number of representation on a university governing council, in this case, you know, allowing various unions, independent unions on a university campus or which are part of a university system to appoint only one representative in the life cycle of a council. Inadvertently, you are being dictatorial because you are now compelling TEU, UTAG, FUSAG to present one person at a time. When we all know that the challenges that UTAG members face or UTAG faces is certainly different from that which will be faced by UTAG. So instantly, you are creating a problem because the unions would not find this type of arrangement acceptable. They also want to be at the table in their capacities as independent unions and indeed stakeholders. Because if any group of these unions decide not to perform their roles or responsibilities on the university campus, there's no way teaching and learning can progress. So when you then say that you are going to reduce their representation to only one to represent all of these varied unions. It presents an issue. Then we also have the instance of the numbers. Many councils between 15, 17, that is sort of the range. Now this bill, if it comes into being, is proposing 9.
Yeah.
And in the 9 being proposed, for the first time, and as far as I know, government, or if you like, representatives of government, get to dominate. So you have the president appointing the chair of council, and it says 4 others, one of whom must be a female. Now remember that out of this 9, 5 already is a majority. But don't forget too that per the arrangement, it is council that also appoints the vice chancellor. So that makes it 6 in addition to the 5. If this were to go through, the arrangement too is that the chairperson of council, in fact, the council will also then appoint the chancellor.
Yeah.
And the chancellor is also a member of council. So clearly, when we say that this is a conduit, or if you like, an avenue for government to take control over the way our universities function, I mean, it is a legitimate case to make, because the governing council is the preeminent decision-making body as far as the university is concerned. So whoever controls the numbers on the governing council, clearly, given the type of system that we know we run in this country, it is obvious that the council will then become an instrument of government, and they will do the bidding of the powers that be of the day. And that is why...
Why that direct correlation? That the fact that the president appoints majority, it means that they will be necessarily be doing the president's...
No, you tell me, what would be the motivation to change the status quo to what we have now, if not for purposes of control and directing what needs to happen? And remember, it is not just this component alone. There are sections of the bill also attributing a lot more authority to the minister. And we know the minister functions as an agent of the president, to the extent that even before a university can engage in some activity, whether local or foreign, they have to get clearance and even policy directions. The minister will have a hand in doing that. And this cannot be tolerated.
But this draft bill also explicitly guarantees academic freedom. In fact, in clause 41, it says, a public university in performing its function shall have the right and responsibility to preserve and promote the traditional principles of our academic freedom in the conduct of its internal and external affairs, B, have powers to regulate its affairs in accordance with independence, ethos, and traditions, and in doing so, it shall have regard to the promotion, perseverance of equality of opportunity and access, effective and efficient use of resources, its obligations as a public accountability. And it says, a member of the academic staff of a university shall have freedom within law in the members' teaching, research, and any other activities, either in or outside the university, to question and test received wisdom, to put forward new ideas, and to state opinions, and shall not be disadvantaged or subject to less favorable treatment by the university for the exercise of that freedom. That is in this same draft bill. So how do you reconcile what you're saying? This is the same bill you say.
Has the university community, first question, has the university community or any of our institutions of higher learning complained that anyone is impinging on their academic freedom as we speak? So what is the need? Look, all of this is just, part of the building blocks.
The rearranged structure in this bill.
Yes.
Directly it stifles academic.
When you were reading, you spoke about regulate itself.
Yes.
So logically then, if this bill believes that the university should have all of this that you said, then why is it trying to take over the preeminent institution that decides on these matters and to control it by way of its members?
That doesn't mean that even with that appointment, that preeminent institution, the council, cannot violate the freedom of the lecturers who are complaining, that they foresee that the control of the political elite and its hand in affairs might jeopardize their freedom. But this law clearly forbids that. And so how can the governing council violate this particular provision? It's so clear that in their research, in their teaching, they cannot be subjected to anything that may be construed as an affront to their freedom.
What I said was that academic freedom is understood by academics. All those who have spoken out against this bill, they have made references to the fact that even this definition that you have read is the external interpretation of what academic freedom means. Academic freedom is not just confined to the ability to speak, to espouse divergent opinions, or to create information or propose ideas that may contravene the established interests and therefore perhaps attract a sanction. It is beyond that. Academic freedom has multiple layers within which it can best be, if you like, enjoyed. The university itself and its ability to decide its trajectory, where it wants to go, the kinds of partners it wants to engage, the kinds of internal policies it wants to initiate, that in itself borders on academic freedom. So the argument we are making is this. Once there is clear evidence to show that the highest decision-making body in a university environment is going to be controlled by the executive, that in itself is a prerequisite to compromise academic freedom. Because make no mistake, promotions, before you get promoted as a lecturer, even before you get engaged as a lecturer, council has a role to play. When you are a lecturer and you apply for promotion, council has a role to play. We have just talked about the fact that if this comes into being, the chancellor will be appointed by council. Even to be able to rise to become a professor, council has a role to play. Council also has a role to play in decisions that will be made in supporting various academics and their research. And even when you have, and look, let's not beat about the bush. Even we cannot be discussing these matters devoid about our own peculiar culture and history and the tendency of the executive to intrude in matters that it should not even have
We'll expand on that shortly, but I want to bring in Mr. Bentil. Where do you stand on this conversation?
I'm sad. It's, sometimes you want to find the reason. So I ask myself, are they trying to solve a problem? And what problem are they trying to solve? And when you put in this kind of energy, you put out a bill, that kind of thing, you want to see how it moves us from where we are to a higher level, how it creates more room for progress. So I say I'm sad because I'm like, why do you go through all this stress? So we can discuss and have the fight we've had over the week when I can't see the problem you're trying to solve. What is the problem they're trying to solve? That's the first thing. Then assuming I don't know the problem they're trying to solve, you read the bill itself and you ask yourself, so what is it saying? I've said, and I repeat, a bill reveals the intention of the person putting it forward. It reveals what they want to do. If this was a dictatorship, that bill would be law. And when you get a sense of somebody's intention, you ask yourself, where are they coming from? Where's the philosophy? What are they seeking to do? And that gives me cause for worry. See, whatever you say, you are what you do. If you read this bill, it is seeking to ultimately create a situation where politicians, and I'm not talking about just this government, whoever becomes president or whoever is in government becomes the person who ultimately controls everything that goes on in the university, because it all ends up on the table of the university council. Okay, so my worry is where from this and what is it trying to do? I've read the memo accompanying the bill, and I'm looking for the problem. I still can't find it. You hear or you read them, give the impression that we need to have one law that regulates universities in Ghana. Sorry, we don't. There are different laws that set up different universities. And if you read the history of the universities, and by the way, all our young people, please read the history of each of our universities. They are very well intertwined with our aspirations as a nation. If you read the history of the University of Ghana, how it came about, you will be impressed with some of the leadership we had in those days and how they managed to convince people by the strength of their argument to give us the University of Ghana. If you read KNUST, you will see the aspirations of Kwabena Duffuor and how he wanted to create this country as a technological hub and leader. Okay? And if you check each of the universities, all the way down to UDS, President Rawlings wanted to create an educational fulcrum in the north. Okay? So each one has a unique history and they have a certain track that they have been following. Point is this: there is enough law, and the recent University of Ghana law, the new one, it's fantastic. Okay? There is enough law for each of the universities to properly manage them. The thinking that you need one law to regulate all universities is totally backward. In the first place, the idea that you even want to kind of unify, okay, universities whichever way is wrong. University of Ghana has its ethos. It has its, slant. It has what it focuses on, okay? And if we were teaching the things that are being taught there well, people laugh at things like, classics and philosophy. Right now, I spend a lot of my time reading history and classics. Mm-hmm. If you understand Greek mythology, you will not make some mistakes. True. Because you see all the things that people have done, and therefore, when you start going that way, you understand. If you talk about the hydra-headed, whatever, it means life is like that. You cut one problem, another one. So many things: sociology, philosophy. All right, I could go into it, but I won't go into it. And that is what University of Ghana is supposed to do. KNUS is supposed to be a technological place. Okay, each of the universities has something that they stand for. Why do you want to slap them together, mix them up, and then have a situation where polytechnics are teaching humanities? It's wrong. So back to my point, this idea of trying to make all universities into one is wrong. Then you have the situation where you see the problem that happened at KNUST, whatever. It seems to me that part of this is influenced by that. It seems to me.
Government has categorically denied that.
Well, I said it seems to me. Yeah. Because you see, when you have a problem, you want power to deal with it the way you want. But that is the whole essence of law. Okay? The jurisprudence of constitutions and constitutional law will tell you that the whole essence of law is to limit power. Because anybody who has unlimited power will tend to abuse it. So the limitations imposed on you by law are for the good of society. And I feel like they felt emasculated, and so they couldn't do all the things they wanted to do in the case of KNUST. They were slapped back and made to go, down and start all over again. And this law is going to cure that, because they will have everything they need to do whatever they want. What people must know if they are in power today is that they will not be in power tomorrow. And whoever you hand this to is going to use it to the worst, possible effect. Now, please, let us appreciate that. When you have a situation where an institution of higher learning cannot make up its own mind, even when that conclusion challenges you, you are in trouble as a society. Look, we've just had about, the Industrial Revolution started around 1750s thereabouts. And since the Industrial Revolution till now, okay, which is 2-3 centuries, we have had more human progress than all of humanity from that time, millions of years back. And I make this point because the Industrial Revolution coincides with a period of academic activism. That is where issues of academic freedom, etc., were understood. People like Galileo, okay, who explained that the sun was the center of the universe, were locked up by the church and died. Great scientists with great wisdom came into conflict with established institutions and established thinking, like the church, the state, etc., and some were killed. As these people kept pushing, the whole world became better. Today, we are where we are in less than 1,000 years, because people's thoughts were unchained. People became free, okay, to the extent that they could even challenge kings and preachers and established wisdom. Here we are in Ghana, we are constricting that space. Look, they have denied this is what they want to do, but I started by saying you are what you do. This bill will give power to a politician or whoever is in power to the point where they can do whatever they want to do.
How do you reconcile that position with the provision in the draft bill I read about that explicitly guarantees academic freedom.
I have read that bill, that provision too, and I've highlighted this part. And the key thing there for you to know is that it is saying that the university shall be the master of whatever happens there. What everybody must know is that the real master of what happens in a university is the university council.
That's right.
That's it. The real master of what happens in the university is a university council. Therefore, yes, the university shall be a master of everything that happens within the university, but it comes down to who is the master of the council. If you have 9 members and 5 are appointed by one person, that one person controls the university. And I'm telling you, look, I'm a lecturer. He's a lecturer. There are a number of... When you are in a university, you'll be amazed. What you are teaching in the classroom can be the subject of you being summoned up somewhere. I kid you not. And you'll be amazed. So please, let us be clear. I am pleading, that's why I'm saying I'm sad, because I don't think this should be a fight. Okay? I am pleading that there should be very sober thinking behind this, and let us look beyond. Sometimes when you make laws, you make them and you think about what will happen if a bad person starts to use this law. And that's the essence of law. So please, this is wrong, and we need to go back and redo it.
Martin, so let me read to you something that Professor Kwesi Yankah said this week, explaining the rationale behind the bill. And he's a Minister of State in charge of tertiary education. He says, and he was talking about the need to harmonize the management of the public universities. Why? He says, for instance, he cited an example, that while appointment to the governing council of the University of Mines and Technology was for a period of 2 years, the governing councils of the other universities had a 3-year term. And so you have this different rules governing different universities. It says while some public universities had 12-member governing councils, others have 15, others have 21, etc., etc. So this is all over the place. And it says, and this is a dread code, this is in the graphic, it says, colleagues in academia panicked too soon. Are you one of those who've panicked too soon?
Yes.
Too soon, exactly. So that's the point. That's the point he's making.
We should wait till when?
You should wait till the consultations are over before you complain.
Where is it too soon? I think I have misunderstood it in the context. The bill itself, please. No, it shouldn't have come out in this form. At all. So, look, Professor Yankah identified some problems. Then, if anything at all, why didn't he limit the contents of the bill to those problems? If we say some universities, the governing council has a 2-year tenure, another has 3. Yes, so
others have 12 members, others have 15, others have 21.
Why is the problem?
Yes, but you see, the bill seeks to overhaul the whole structure of how the universities function. Look, you have in the clause 23 that talks about the fact that the university, they can't enter into any contract with any other institution, internal, that's local or external, without prior approval, going way up to the minister.
Yeah, but don't you see why that has been put in there?
We
had a situation with University of Ghana where they took some loans. I mean, it's not a fight that happened with the previous government.
Yes, so when I saw that particular clause, I thought that, okay, it has to do with the Africa Integrals contract. You know, University of Ghana entered into a contract to build some hostels.
Exactly. It became an issue.
Yeah, it's not just an issue, let's state it clearly. There's a huge judgment debt. A huge debt. That contract is...
And who's going to pay?
Yes, so that's what I said. So
he who pays the piper calls the tune, and that's exactly what is happening.
So you should stop paying the piper.
They should have been transparent. They should
have been
financing, yes.
Can the university survive without the piper? Go on, please.
So they should have disclosed that, look, for that particular clause, this is the mischief we want to cure. This is the problem we want to solve. Then we can look and get, tailor the solution. But to have just put it so blanket, the way 23 is being couched, it means that if a professor wants to get a partner from another university to engage in research, it has to go way up. That's how come the professors are complaining, the lecturers are complaining that it's going to stifle initiative, stifle research. So you see that that clause is too broad, way too more than what is required. So if you have a problem that, look, in recent times, the university has incurred judgment debts in a manner that could have been cured, maybe table that, go get a roundtable conference, stakeholder consultation. Then you specifically aim to solve that problem. But you don't come out. So how about the provisions that now even the Chancellor is appointed by the President? How? But if you look in Act 806, The Chancellor is appointed in University of Ghana by an equal number of, an electoral college made up of an equal number of convocation, okay, and the academic board. Right. But now the president is going to appoint the Chancellor. How? You go on and on. Look at the section about the minister giving directives. Why? All this time. So it looks like we are not learning from our history. Look, even Kwame Nkrumah, with all his powers, when he tried, eventually he failed. You know, at that time, that was the time of this former Secretary General of the UN.
Chambers.
No, UN, O'Brien.
Okay.
Conor Cruz O'Brien. Yeah, Kwame Nkrumah brought him after his tenure as Secretary General of the UN. He brought him, he became VC. He tried to interfere. It didn't work. O'Brien used to rubbish, or let me say, disagree openly with the things that Kwame Nkrumah wanted to do. You know, it was those times. That's what led those strikes. The university was closed down. Professor Kluje, that time he was a student, they were arrested. Then eventually...
Don't mention my father's name.
Exactly.
Don't.
Yes, so thankfully, the good knows the history even more than I do.
But it was good.
You see,
it's turning up to
exactly. So that's the point Martin is making.
It's a rich history that, look, the universities don't play with them. So, Evans, you see that quite clearly. One thing comes up again. This issue of the president being so powerful. The executive branch is just too powerful in our fourth Republican Constitution. You see, so in a sense, this is a narrow form of the winner takes all. Why? At this time in time, that the president wants to take over the running of the university. It's too late in the day. The president has too many other functions, too many roles to play. So I think matters like this are best left with the universities. As I said, for me, my heart and my mind is with the government when it comes to the judgment debt that was incurred in respect of the African Integrals, the University of Ghana, the construction of the hostels. So let's bring it up and solve it. Yeah. Yes, let's bring it up and solve it because that's taxpayers' money.
So let's deal with that. It came up with Bente. Let's deal with that because if government is paying the piper in this case, why shouldn't they have the most say in the way it's run? Because eventually they'll pick the bill.
So they should talk about
I'll come to you, Bente, before I go to...
Yes, so they should...
Why shouldn't they have the most say?
No, they should restrict it to the money, specifically the spending. When you're about to specifically spend government money or specifically enter into a contract that if you default, you would be paying. And as soon as it's the university that's going to be paying, then government is at risk. Let me repeat. You see, restrict it to money that will be coming from the consolidated fund, and also restrict it, that's contracts that the university will enter to, restrict it to contracts in which if there's a default, it will fall upon government to pay. Then you see that you've narrowed the scope. So if, let's say, a professor of biology maybe wants, or let's say public health, they want to, let's say, collaborate with Johns Hopkins University, okay? You know, recently, Bloomberg gave them 1.8 billion. Perhaps as part of this 1.8 billion, they can cooperate with partner universities across the world to conduct research. So if there's going to be money for them to conduct research, why should this go through up to the Minister of Education? If it's going to be freebies, so to speak, of course, not exactly free, but they are going to get research funds to conduct research. But, you know, they have to sign a contract. All this should go through to the Minister of Education. Why?
Kofi?
So you see that provision 23 is overbroad. The ones on the appointment of the Chancellor, too much. And even that's a way totally new. No. And as Kofi and Dr. Park have already indicated, the composition of the council, now the president alone has 5. Even as some would say 6, depending on how you interpret it. That's way too much. Way too much. Look, let's just remain with the status quo ante. And then, as I say, if they want to harmonize tenure of office, yes. Yeah, but even when it comes to the membership, you know, some have 15, some have 17. I don't totally agree that membership should be harmonized. Maybe tenure, yes. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the issue of judgment debts. Yes. This
isolate and deal with them separately. I'll come to Kofi briefly.
That problem comes from the fact that the universities depend or are financed by government.
Yeah.
Which construct itself was fit at a certain time. When the university started, it couldn't have been self-financing. So clearly, we had support. The history of the University of Ghana is like that. If you read it, it's cocoa farmers. Okay, a certain amount, I think 10 pesos or so, from each cocoa bag was taken or put aside to finance the University of Ghana. That's how we did it. And so clearly it couldn't have been self-financing at the time. And so government has supported it over time. Today, as we speak, if you take the total student population of University of Ghana, it's around 50,000.
It's a lot of money for university.
That place is a city. All right? Now, it is not possible for you to explain to me how the University of Ghana cannot organize itself to be self-financing. Years ago, when we were making these arguments, and I mean in the 90s, people said, no, it's not possible for all kinds of things. Then Gimpa, which was a very sleepy place, okay, was handed to Professor Adai. Professor Adai took that place and people told him he would fail. Today, Gimpa is a preeminent tertiary institution in this country. And during the time of Professor Adai, he could go totally without government financing, okay? We have, at Imani, we have said a lot about reforming university financing. We insist that that is what must happen today. A system of scholarships and a system of vouchers. Okay, if you give me a minute, I'll just explain simply how that works. Look, all the places you go to, the Harvards and the Stanfords and whatever it is, my brother, they have huge financing. Why? Because apart from the endowments are there, but students necessarily have to pay. But not all of them pay out of their pockets. There's a system of scholarships and a system of grants and a system of whatever. If Ghana government is giving money to universities, essentially the money is not really to be building buildings or even making roads, although those are important. It is to be training students or teaching students, teaching and learning. So we've always said, if Evans passes and gets admission, give him a voucher equal to, let's say, 30,000 cedis, and let him go to the University of Ghana and use it to pay. If they put together all those vouchers, they can cash it, and the university would have been subvented or would have been financed by government without government control. That way also, the student gets to pick whether he will go to UST to go and do science, or Legon to go and do philosophy, or University of Mines to go and do, or go to Poly, or go to a private university. Choose to go to Ashesi University. People should know that the private universities are also educational institutions training Ghanaians, okay? And they are worthy of support. So if you have that voucher system, and those who want to can pay for themselves, those who need the money can use the vouchers, the universities will actually effectively be financed by government. But you have a situation where you will not have these kinds of judgment debt arrangements, because when the university gets into financial arrangements with other persons, it takes its own liability. By the way, it has assets. The lands at the University of Ghana alone are worth millions of dollars and all kinds of things going on. So there is no reason why government must take consolidated fund taxpayers' money to be financing the University of Ghana after all these years.
I'll come to you for final word.
Yes.
But I haven't heard from Kuku. I want to hear from Kuku.
Let's hear from him.
So are you one of those who panic too soon?
I heard he used his favorite word somewhere else, but, well.
You know, Kofi said something, and it was to the effect that this draft bill, and for me, I would even qualify it as a very crude preliminary draft bill. It's at that stage of the raw material. Nothing has happened to it. If you are talking about industrial production and those things, very, very preliminary. And he said that if it was a dictatorship, it would have become law. But this is a democracy, so it is not a law. It cannot be imposed. It means that there's a process for this very preliminary draft bill to be sent through before it can even be a bill, draft or the same, presented to Parliament. And I was quite interested in a point that my brother made, and I mean Apak, that he, as a member of the Education Committee, has not even seen it.
No, I haven't.
Do I understand
Formally,
that?
it doesn't come to
Exactly. No, do I understand that to mean that this bill in this form has not been communicated to Parliament, for that matter, no referral to the Committee on Education?
You are right. You are right. You are right on that.
So it still makes it very, very preliminary. At this stage, my understanding is that this particular bill has been communicated or delivered to the immediate stakeholders, the Vice Chancellors, the UTAC, and other related unions, for their input, so that those who signed it, together with them, can put up a draft that will subsequently go to Cabinet before Parliament. That's the stage at which we are. This is a pre-legislation stage. And that's what it is. Kofi is right to say that, yes, the intention is also important. But the intention, in my view, once it's going through this democratic intercourse, cannot be the final.
I saw a smile on your face when you said it.
I didn't
He
hear
has been
that.
an associate banker for years, so.
Of course.
And he's very proud of it.
I was located in D9.
There
D9.
you go. There you go.
D19
When I was
rather.
still on campus, I was the tutor for D Block. So.
Interesting. Okay, that's the way I see it. That's the process at which, the stage of the process at which we are now. Now, but this is a democracy, and I love this country's stage, this democratic evolution we are having. Somebody might have leaked it, or somebody might have intercepted it. Either way, it has become an issue of public interest. So everybody is critiquing. Civil society groups, very serious one like Imani Ghana, individuals like Kofi, all of them are critical. I have absolutely nothing against that. It helps, ultimately, because the policymakers are listening, and they may also be taking on board some of the sentiments being expressed. But I think at this stage, the most important thing the policymakers were looking for is the views and opinions, the input of the immediate stakeholders, those they have sent this document to. I am informed some of them have responded formally, and some have put forward very critical views, some similar to the views sections of the public are expressing. And at the end of the day, you expect that the processes they are going through, the consultations, the intercourses, all those things put together will lead to a refined or redefined draft bill. Then we'll go to Parliament, the Speaker will do the appropriate referral, and even at the level of Parliament, and he knows better than I do, once Parliament sits, the committee, memoranda come from various sections of the public, again leading to possible refining of that draft before the committee. Am I right?
Yes, you're correct.
So there's no cause for alarm.
Premature.
Am I premature ejaculation? That is my position.
My
That
time is
doesn't mean
almost up, so
no, but you see,
he's giving me one.
that's the view.
One
Meanwhile,
of the phrases.
and the public discussions have brought to the fore the specifics,
Yeah.
the areas that we think are more or less an anathema to the progress of the
What do you make of
university.
the specifics? So I
Coming
think
there.
right now.
Before I go to the specifics, I just wanted to make one point, and I need education and perhaps more enlightenment on this matter. We have one act for technical universities, do we? We have one act for the 46 public colleges of education, don't we?
That's correct.
Do those acts, these two, have they imposed a certain culture or subculture of regimentation on those institutions?
Those institutions are not functioning well.
They are not functioning well, but maybe not because of the act per se. There may be reasons why they are not functioning well. We may have to look for them. Now, you made a very interesting point about University of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology being technology
Oriented.
Yeah, but do they do law? Things like law
That's the
there?
problem.
But the problem is there. So the point I'm making, unless this act that are being contemplated, this act for public universities, is going to actually more or less regiment, take away diversity. The university is already, they're already in a pool of diversity. That's the point I'm making. Already. All of them, the public universities. Is there an intention to take that diversity away? If I read the memorandum, the explanatory memorandum, as well as the draft bill, I don't see that explicitly. I don't see any policy intention or direction to regiment them, put them all under one thing that all of you are good. I see somewhere the need for status for each of the universities. The status, I believe, and I'm not a lawyer, fortunately we have 3 lawyers, 2 lawyers here. Yeah.
We are street lawyers.
Yeah, well, hopefully, if people accept it.
You've read more law than
Because some don't even accept that.
Oh, no,
Even
no,
though
no.
I listen more to the lawyers and take a cue from there. That's what I
I've read
do.
more law than
Or when I'm
public
coming and there are
affairs.
legal issues, I have lawyer friends who I call and do arguments with them. People like Ace, Akotoampa, and all the rest. I have people I rely on for legal opinion. Martin has become one of late. But the point I'm making is that I could be educated. Whether the act will take away what specific status relative to each university will do in its entirety, especially when it comes to the content, their tradition.
But it's affecting their ability to enter into contracts, partnerships.
We'll come there, yeah. But those areas, as we've seen, the judgment that you brought in itself.
Could give you one that answer?
Please,
the answer is in what they call mission creep. Mission creep is where we set off to do one thing. But once you create a platform which allows you to do other things, you would end up doing it. It will not be expressly stated here. But you have a situation where you have all the control you need to do anything. So I give the example of what happened in KNUST. If you had this kind of construct at the time the KNUST problem happened, government would have done any and everything it wanted. And it did some of it, but when it did some of it, people relying on the law beat it back, and it had to go back.
And the existing law, good point. The existing law then was there, and the disturbances happened, isn't it?
Yes,
to the extent that it even had potential for national security.
Yeah.
Well,
isn't it?
Some people say so. We've had worse university uprisals in this country.
But you are asking me.
Exactly. So don't buy it when people say a university problem
No,
is a national
anything could
security
happen.
problem.
But I'm not for. You see, what I'm doing is not to justify this draft bill, because it's just a draft bill. It's a preliminary one. All I'm saying is that perhaps there's an overkill, an element of overkill in terms of the reaction. And then we proceed to judgmental opinions, or verdicts rather, when we come to the specifics. The point about president appointing 5 of the council, so it can lead to domination by a political executive.
Also slightly academic freedom.
That's a legitimate. No, I'm more. Well, I'm not too sure about that one. But in terms of the norms, yes. If you ask me, I would vote for a reduction in the norms. But that is why the immediate stakeholders, I'm told some of them have pointed it out. They are against the 5. And if government is minded, that is the policymakers are minded, in terms of the processes of refining this, that number could change from 5 to 3 or 4, or even less. You are talking of president's power to dissolve or reconstitute the council in the case of emergency. What animal is that? The emergency.
What's the definition of emergency?
That's what I mean. So that's a legitimate concern. That's why I'm saying that even what the public are doing, civil society are doing, will be helpful ultimately. But honestly, to create the impression, and I've heard very serious people, including some who were former government functionaries, creating the impression that they are unaware of how such processes evolve. And it's not fair.
So can you address the overriding concern about academic freedom, that this is an affront to it?
Well, I've read this thing, and I haven't seen it, where I've heard people talk about that. The idea is that once the executive nominees dominate, or appointees dominate the board, academic board, or the governing council, then they are reading into it the possibility of some particular lecturers or officers of the university, if they did something that government of the day didn't like. And Kofi alluded to it, about even your lectures, giving lectures and things. So they see a potential threat to academic freedom. I have to be honest, I've read it, I don't immediately see it. But I'm open to it. After all, that's why these discussions are going on. So once it's articulated that vigorously and clearly, and it is seen, and I believe for the opinions that have been, the inputs that have gone, may have raised them. Only a government that is so insensitive to stakeholder engagement and the inputs that come from there will ignore all that and reroute this into an act. the fact that they have taken this initiative, which is not peculiar to this government anyway, most bills, but this is a controversial one, obviously, they have taken it to the immediate stakeholders. They've sent inputs. When they have crafted the new draft bill for presentation to Parliament, it will go. Parliament will open their doors for further memoranda. All these discussions we are having could be consolidated into a certain reference point for Parliament. So to be honest with you, whereas I love that, the spirited agitation and arguments and things, I say there's no cause for that.
Just a quick one to help. You see,
yes, please.
When it comes to law, okay, the problem is not that somebody declares an intent to abuse it. Whenever laws are being phrased or they are being written or crafted, everybody who understands law looks for the potential for abuse.
Yeah.
It is not an intention to abuse. When we did the Kelly thing, we didn't say that the telcos were going to listen to everybody. We said once you create that situation, there's a
they could take advantage of it.
So that is what we are talking about.
Yes, but that's why your input might cure that aspect.
So that is the issue now about inputs. I hear you say it's premature, but this is the purpose of putting these things
So this
out.
is a preemptive strike.
It is very necessary.
I hear you.
Very necessary.
I
And
don't have
also,
an
we
argument.
may seem to be, look, like I said, we are academics. And I happen to be an academic, and I happen to be an activist too.
Sure.
So I get the blowback on every side.
You are
so
hybrid.
you get this reaction. And across history, we don't have time, but across history, this has been the heart of fighting for the development of all humanity.
Yes, so we are fighting.
So it's not premature. Let the
where we differ.
reactions come, and even if they are laced with emotions, it shows you how important we consider these things to be.
Some of the judgmental verdicts that I think are premature, not the discussion,
I
not
hear
the
you.
involvement in the public discourse or intercourse.
Okay.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I can never go against that. But
So the
I'm saying
potential
that
for abuse
then
is what we are all
people
worried about.
People then manufacture conspiracy theories, the suspicions, they invite us to enter that realm and interrogate. I'm not saying that's happening here. You see, the great Venerable Akukosa was the one who said, a multitude of suspicions constitute...
1 minute wrapper for me, and I'll take 1 minute for you.
Martin,
Can I move on to-
don't quote it better.
I think it is very clear, and I agree with Kofi that whilst this may not be law yet, whilst the processes are yet to get to where people like myself would have the official capacity to weigh in, it clearly indicates the intent. And I think that is why people are worried, because if this is the thinking, and the thinking is at variance with the major stakeholders in the sector, then given the reaction, I truly think that this should be shelved, because it is quite obvious.
It should be shelved, as in withdraw the entire law.
It is unnecessary.
The entire thing.
It is truly
That
needless.
you didn't see anything in this bill
the
that,
issues-
that warrants.
I
a second.
truly don't see any reason why.
At least you heard Master Kubu
No, I know,
address
and I'm
the
going
financial
to address that.
challenge.
Those
question.
issues, we can't deny that they are present. But does that mean that we should be looking at unification, making all our universities look and act the same, and even ceding the current authority of the universities to determine their own future and their direction to a government of the day? So if you were to ask me, if indeed these problems exist, then why don't we look at a localized way of resolving them? They can be resolved. There can be amendments done to the various
existing law.
Yes. Okay. Why do we have to go through a total overhaul? Okay. I truly don't think that it is necessary, because rather this is going to be retrogressive. And if we have identified some of these challenges, as alluded to by colleague panelists, we can do the surgery.
Okay. Let me take final quick thoughts from you.
Yeah, so Evans, okay, I just reiterate that. So based on my earlier comments, we are better off dealing with specific problems that have arisen.
But you are coming almost to where his position.
Yes.
Identify the problem, surgically deal with it.
Yes,
Not have a blanket approach.
Yes,
to
that's the
dealing
word.
with it.
Surgically deal with it, and also especially this overbroad, 23 about not entering into contracts or any agreements with other institutions. Well, that please, it shouldn't make its way into the.
Your good friend.
Before you say something,
yes,
I am surprised that my good professor, Professor Yanka, has worried about our reaction. You know, he was a dean of students when I was in first year. And I knew the type of person he is.
He was very, very,
and he was the pro-vice chancellor
yes.
and the governing board chair of Radio Universe when I came back from my studies. And so he actually handpicked me to take over from Kwabena. And I'm surprised, Prof himself, if not because he's now within the executive. I really doubt whether Prof would allow
this is an unfair comment.
You wanted to do it. Your good friend.
I don't think he will let it pass.
Your good friend, former President Rawlings.
Yes.
This week, because if you read the law in Schedule 2, part of the law wants to rename the universities. And one of the universities would have been renamed after his good self. And he says he doesn't want it.
You know something? And I'll be very honest with you. As Martin was referring to some clauses, clause 23 these days, I checked mine. It's not the same. And on Thursday, on Good Morning Ghana, I had
Edward Bauer.
Yes, I had
the document.
Yeah, I had this thing a day or two before. I thought I'd finished reading. So on that program, I said no, I hadn't seen any schedule dealing with renaming, and proceeded to deal with it, only for Bauer to call my attention to what he had on his phone.
Schedule 2.
Then I decided to do double checking, and I realized there's a second schedule on the document I was holding, which I had inadvertently missed.
That's the problem with drafts.
I like that. But you see, I found something interesting, and this ought to be explained. I've checked, I've given a certain explanation, but I find it still interesting. If you look at the second schedule, the one I have, and why I say some of the clauses too are not made the same way. 7.
7.
It says University of Development Studies. There is no Rawlings attached.
Okay. Mine says Jerry John Rawlings University for Development Studies.
Mine
Yes,
too.
so the drafts that we have,
Problem with drafts.
one might be, well, that's interesting, but the Rawlings one has been omitted. And I'm told officially, reliably, when I checked, because I had to, that last year, Mr. Rawlings was contacted. It was communicated to him that the government intended to do something like this, and he declined the offer. And on basis of which, government decided not to do it. So this updated, well, I may be wrong saying mine is updated, you never can tell, but quote unquote, minus Rawlings. His name is not here.
Okay.
You see the point?
So if this is your updated one, then it's been corrected, it's taken out.
I suspect so.
His views have been accommodated.
Yes, but it appears that decision was taken even last year when he declined. I'm told to the president that he was not interested, and the decision was taken to omit him. So the draft that has his name, I'm not sure why his name was included. But whatever it is, Mr. Rawlings is out here. The rest stands.
Okay, then that brings the question, Kofi. Is it even necessary to rename the university?
You know, so the general view is that public universities tend to be geotagged, so geographically named, University of Florida, and, University of South Texas, that kind of thing. For some special reason, you might give it a name which, has to do with some historical figure.
Johns Hopkins.
In those cases, you'll be amazed. They give a lot of money. And if you want to do that, do that.
Yeah.
There was a competition in one of the universities in the States where somebody gave like 300 million and somebody came and gave 500 million and they named the building after him. It was actually Bill Gates. If you want to do that, that's fine. Okay, Harvard is Harvard because of Reverend Harvard. So some of those things, there is solid reason behind them. In our case, however, the names become unwieldy. Okay, Nana Opoku Ampoma University for Professional Studies.
How could be that one?
No, it's there. It's did you see?
That's right.
Nana Opoku Ampoma University for Professional Studies.
I'm cool with it.
No, you see, and
It's
unwieldy. Do you know that the transition from UST to KNUST is difficult for some people even today? So what is the need for it? Look, you can name other things or find other more elegant ways to do it. And I'm not surprised that some of the people, like President Rawlings, is saying no.
I don't want it.
Yeah. And I haven't heard from Nana Opoku Ampoma. I was his lawyer at the point. Okay. But at that time when I was representing him, he never made a request that it be named after him. Okay. Maybe once the idea has come, it's fine. He wanted other things. So name is name, a name is a name. But again, what's the need, and will it add to us or take away from us? Because now you don't know what name to use. Komla Agbeli, or you cut it short and use the other one. And it's
University.
Bedema University.
Yeah.
So then make it Bedema University.
No, Afro-Bede University.
If we want to name it's long universities after important Ghanaian personalities, let's build more and name them. Why do we have to name them after the existing one?
Well, thank you, gentlemen.
It's my time.
Yes, your time is up.
But let me take this opportunity.
You are exiting.
Wish my daughter a happy birthday. Yesterday was my mother's birthday as well.
Your daughter?
She's now 16.
Oh, okay.
She's actually in San Diego, California.
She's approaching the...
yesterday was my mother's birthday.
You should be warning the people who are taking the name and be coming to us. Knock on your door. Now that you've advertised
before that was my other two daughters. They were born on the same day. One turned 20 and one turned 6. Okay. One in Ghana and one in the US. So okay, great. I seem to have a lot of April people in my family.
Dr. Pat, thank you very much. He's going to take leave of us, and because our next segment we're going to be discussing the infrastructure financing, the Sino-Hydro question, the question of value for money. Is Sino-Hydro the answer? $2 billion. The president this week cut salt for the first interchange in the north, which is the Tamale interchange. There's a lot of questions about the value for money issues that had come up that we'll look at, but also the entire project itself that the minority had kicked. In fact, government this week addressed a press conference and accused the other side of simply not wanting to see that project materialize, and that's why they've been criticizing it. And the Ghana Institution of Surveyors, they did the value for money audit. They've been very upset with the minority's claims that they can be the institution that does this, because some of them have questioned the credibility of the report that they've done. We're going to look into that, the multi-billion-dollar project. Some of the roads are starting in earnest. That'll be fixing your roads in your part of the country. I want us to join us on our many social media platforms on this particular important conversation right after this break.